Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I am so glad you're joining us today for, well, another truly unique exploration. And for those of you who've been on this, let's call it monumental journey with us, you know exactly what this means. This is session 8 of our ambitious reading Finnegans Wake in 200 sessions.
Session 8 already. Oh.
I know. And today we are really plunging deep into the lyrical, maybe labyrinthine world of pages 23 through 29.
Indeed. And if you thought the waters were murky before, well, you should probably prepare for a fascinating immersion now. Our mission today, our deep dive, is really to try and pull out the most important nuggets from these pages. They are incredibly dense.
That's putting it mildly.
Right. Joyce has woven this tapestry here. It's a tapestry of death, of an almost, desperate attempt at revival, and also this profound cyclical nature of history, of identity.
And all wrapped up, as only Joyce can do it, in this linguistic play that's just, well, it's unparalleled, isn't it?
Truly is.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this a bit. The central riddle, the thing that really kind of pulls you through these pages, is this supposed wake, right? For Finnegan, who we understand is HCE. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. The mourners are frantically trying to keep him from waking up.
Yeah, it's completely paradoxical.
So what does this paradox tell us about how we as humans kind of grapple with change, with succession, with the relentless flow of time? Why is his continued rest, his continued absence, so crucial to those he supposedly left behind?
That's really the core question, isn't it? And it's one that Joyce explores through just layers upon layers of myth, history, and the very fabric of language itself.
Yeah.
We're going to journey from what Joyce calls the happy fault, this idea that sort of kickstarts everything, through a really rich landscape of mythic and historical allusions.
Okay.
We'll get a peek into the, the domestic dramas of the family left to carry on. And finally, we'll witness the arrival of, well, a replacement figure.
The replacement.
It's a journey deep into memory, the power of words, the cyclical rhythm of existence. It really invites you, the listener, to listen more deeply than maybe ever before.
Sounds like we've definitely got our work cut out for us. So let's jump right in, beginning with what Joyce calls the happy fault and this incredible landscape of loss, starting right there on page 23.
Let's do it.
Our journey into these specific pages, it really begins with this pivotal, almost paradoxical phrase, "O Phoenix Culprit." It just immediately throws us into this fascinating blend of theology and Dublin geography.
It really does.
The phrase, of course, is playing on the Latin "O Felix Culpa" from the Holy Saturday hymn, the Exultet. Can you tell us a bit more about its profound theological implications?
Certainly. Yeah. O Felix Culpa translates to O happy fault, or sometimes O fortunate fall that merited such and so great a redeemer. It's a core theological concept, and it's rooted really in St. Augustine's idea that, without Adam's original sin, Christ wouldn't have been born.
Right, the necessary fall.
Exactly. And Augustine even takes it further back, suggesting that without Lucifer's sin, Adam himself wouldn't have been created. So it introduces this profound theme right from the get-go, that from evil, good can ultimately come. The idea of ex malo bonum fit.
Which is such a brilliant contrast, isn't it, to that more common philosophical dictum, ex nihilo nihil fit. Out of nothing comes nothing. Joyce is showing us that from a perceived fall, something new, maybe even redemptive, can arise.
Precisely.
And the phoenix part of Phoenix Culprit, that's doing double duty here, isn't it? It's not just a misspelling.
Absolutely not. It's pure Joyce. The Phoenix immediately connects us to Phoenix Park in Dublin, which is subtly identified, as the scene of HCE's pivotal, very ambiguous sin in the park.
Okay, so it grounds the mythic sin in a very specific, real-world location.
Yes, but the reference is even deeper and darker than that. Phoenix Park was the site of the infamous 1882 Phoenix Park murders, where radical nationalists called the Invincibles assassinated key British officials.
Right. The Invincibles.
So HCE's personal kind of mythic transgression is immediately interwoven with a violent historical event. It adds layers of gravity and consequence right away.
And beyond just the specific location, the image of the phoenix itself carries such profound symbolic weight.
It really does. The phoenix, rising from ashes, it's a classic symbol of renewal, of rebirth. And it's a motif that the historian Michelet used to explain Vico's cyclical theory of history.
Which is fundamental to the wake.
Absolutely fundamental. So this seemingly simple pun, phoenix, it subtly signals the Viconian structure of eternal return that underpins the entire book. It hints that even in fall and destruction, there's the promise of a new cycle beginning.
And Joyce, being Joyce, of course, doesn't stop there with the linguistic layering. This happy fault idea, it really expands as he works with phrases like Nicolo-Malo. What's the real puzzle in this phrase? What's the most crucial meaning we should take from it here?
Well, it's a typically dense Joycean linguistic puzzle, isn't it? And it really reveals his method of continuous layering. Here, Joyce seems to be combining Slavic words niki, possibly from Czech for nulls or zeros, and malo, from Russian for little, with the Latin malo.
Which means evil or apple, right? Thinking of Eve's sin.
Exactly. Malum is apple. And then he folds in Michaelmas, which points to Michaelmas, the feast day on September 29th, and also the proverb many a mickle makes a muckle.
Meaning many small amounts accumulate into something large.
Precisely. So what this dense linguistic layering really shows us is Joyce's core idea that even seemingly minor transgressions or small historical events accumulate over time. They shape profound theological and societal consequences. It's never just one fault, you see, but a continuous expanding ripple effect.
So the stage is set with this foundational fault and its incredibly intricate linguistic echoes. Now, Joyce introduces us to the core allegorical figures that really dominate the wake. HCE as the silent mountain and ALP as the babbling stream. We see this directly in the phrase hill rill.
Yes, HCE is personified as the Hill of Howth, that prominent headland north of Dublin Bay. And he's often shrouded in clouds, hence Wolkencap is on him, frowned.
Wolkencap, cloud cap.
Right. And this cloud cap suggests both literal weather, with clouds being, evaporated water from rivers, which connects back to ALP, the Liffey River, and HCE's own internal state. His deep thought, his unhappiness maybe, it paints a picture of isolation and brooding.
And he's struggling to perceive what's happening around him, isn't he? We hear about HCE's deafness. Auditory, and he would eavesdrip, meaning longing to hear. If he could hear, he'd eavesdrop on the sound of dripping water.
Yes, Joyce even noted himself that the listener, or HCE, is deaf, or going deaf, which makes the very act of listening and perception a central challenge in these pages.
And that challenge of hearing is then expanded with that really vivid line, where a grin is at hand or a din of bottles in the far ear. What's going on there?
John Gordon's analysis here is, I think, particularly insightful. He suggests that a nearby quiet event, like a mouse scurrying high war numus at hand, and a distant noisy one, like a din of battles or maybe din of bottles for an innkeeper like HCE.
Right, the pub owner.
They become equally faint. This is because of the listener's impaired hearing and the sort of distorting effect of distance. It illustrates what Gordon calls the mutable relativism of perception.
So inner conditions profoundly influence outer sensations. It blurs the lines between what's significant and what's trivial.
Exactly. Your perception of the world is filtered through your own limitations.
So HCE is struggling to hear, almost seems assaulted by sound. But what about ALP, Anna Livia Plurabelle? How does she attempt to communicate with this silent mountain?
Joyce gives her a very distinct, almost elusive voice, doesn't he? With her lips she lifteth them all to time of thooch on thooch and through on through. Oh, she does. That lisping speech is just loaded with potential meanings. It could signify infancy, maybe a coquettish affectation, or even a kind of seductive tone. Joyce might have even intended lips she lispeth as a deliberate tongue twister for the reader,
Oh, probably.
Her fragmented speech continues with she, he, she, ho, she, hat, la, which further suggests mispronounced or misheard or just indistinct words. It evokes musical notes like sophalati-do or even maybe Greek definite articles, he, ho, too. It highlights a breakdown of clear communication. It's babbling rather than a coherent statement trying to reach him.
But HCE, this silent mountain, he simply can't connect with her. Hair fluke, if he could bad twigger. Impalpabund, he appears. What's happening here? He seems to be trying to physically grasp her.
Yes, exactly. He's trying to catch her hair by a fluke or maybe a hair's breadth by a stroke of luck. Bad twig her means barely see or understand her, but he cannot feel her. She's impalpable, impalpabund.
From the Latin, they shall not feel.
Right. And he appears her, which means he abhors her, detests her, but also, crucially, unhears her, or perhaps is unable to tolerate her sound.
This impalpable nature, it connects back to the Vulgate Psalms, doesn't it? They have hands, but they handle not.
Yeah.
It reinforces his inability to perceive or interact with her meaningfully.
Absolutely. And then the sound waves are his buffeteers. They trump him with their trumps. That powerfully illustrates this assault. Sound reaching his ear feels like air molecules literally beating on his eardrums, which are themselves like drums.
Buffeteers as those who buffet or beat.
And trump.
Trump can mean to tramp, tromp, like heavy footsteps. It can mean trumpet or even an elephant's trunk. And certainly it means to deceive. So sound itself is both a physical force and a kind of deception for him.
It's like the very act of hearing is an assault. And these sound waves, Joyce ties them very deeply to Ireland itself, doesn't he? Yes, explicitly. He links them to the 4 waves of Ireland. Tonn, 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 Chlíodhna, and Tonn. These are all specific legendary points on the Irish coast associated with powerful tides and sounds.
And Joyce evokes those sounds so powerfully.
He really does. He describes them as Rory for the crashing, Hooshed for the silence that follows, Howth for the rattling of pebbles and the surf being drawn back. Much like Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach, that sense of the melancholy, long, withdrawing roar.
Yeah.
And then never heed them, which conveys this kind of cacophonous white noise before the next crash. It's a visceral, almost assaulting depiction of the natural world, reflecting HCE's internal turmoil.
And intriguingly, Joyce hints that the listener is partly hearing themselves, the chording of the blood in the inner ear.
Right. It suggests that perception is an internal event as much as an external one. You're always hearing the hum of your own existence mixed in with the world.
So HCE's fall, this sin, it has both personal and public repercussions. It extends far beyond just his immediate predicament. Joyce quickly expands this, showing us how his fall isn't just a personal struggle, but a force that ripples out, shaping the very landscape and destiny of Dublin itself.
Exactly. That line, landlocked by his neighbor mistress and perpetrified in his offsprung sebs and suckers, it's packed with meaning. Landlocked implies he's landlocked, like Howth Head, cut off from the mainland by the Sutton Isthmus. But it also clearly connects to Lough Neagh, the large lake in Ulster, whose waters were legendarily said to have petrifying properties.
So HCE is perpetrified, both perpetuated through his children, his offspring, and literally turned to stone by them.
Yes, it perfectly encapsulates HE's paradoxical legacy. His children both preserve his memory and simultaneously immobilize him. They create a Dublin that is both his creation and, in a way, his prison.
And Sabs and Suckers plays on babes and sucklings from the Psalms, but also maybe sages and suckers, hinting at the varying intellectual quality of his children, the ones who inherit his complicated legacy.
Then we get the moaning pipers, a very clever twist on mourning papers, but also invoking funeral pipes.
Right.
They tell him to his faceback, a fascinating faceback motif that runs through the wake, the full consequences of his fall. He's the Louthly one, archaic for hideous or hateful, but also, referring to County Louth and maybe German lob for praise and live for body. It's this complex intertwining of shame, regional identity, and even a strange hint of praise for the suffering that shaped the land.
And the city itself seems implicated in this whole happy fault idea. How but for his hold halibut, or her to her pewter puff, our breed and washer givers. It suggests that without their respective faults, his holy butt perhaps, and her shameful modesty or powder puff, hinting at female vanity or flirtatiousness, there would be no Dublin.
It directly reiterates the O Felix Culpa motif.
Yeah.
It implies that the very existence of Dublin, this novo nilbud, which is just Dublin spelled backward,
Classic choice.
is a consequence of their sins. Breed and washer givers is clearly bread and water givers, connecting to basic sustenance, but also implying a kind of moral debt owed. Joyce implies this cyclical indebtedness, where the city is born from the very sins it now seems to condemn.
And the physical landscape of the city itself is called into question. There would not be a holy spire on the town, nor a vestal flouting in the dock. What's going on there?
Well, holy spire is brilliant. It means both a holy spire of a church and spying through holes, suggesting voyeurism, a key theme related to HCE.
Okay.
And vestal flouting can be a vessel floating in the dock, but also a vestal, meaning a virgin, here inverted to imply a prostitute, flouting decency. It might even allude to St. Lawrence O'Toole Church and its bells.
And Novo Nilbud by Swamplight.
That clearly references Dublin by Lamplight, the notorious Magdalen laundry, where fallen women were put to work. Joyce himself called it a wicked place full of wicked and lost women whom a kindly committee gathers together for the good work of washing my dirty shirts. It's a very dark, ironic touch, hinting at a city built on exploitation and moral hypocrisy.
Wow. And finally, a naughty hint to the convenience. Just a public lavatory.
Yes. Often, as Joyce apparently noted, inconveniently out of order. It adds this touch of mundane, slightly pathetic realism to the grand mythic narrative. It brings it right back down to earth, or maybe the plumbing.
Okay, now despite all this talk of his fall and its consequences, there's a strong undercurrent here of HCE's previous power and influence. It even hints at his potential for revival. It's almost as if the mourners are trying to, I don't know, talk down his true significance.
Indeed. You see that right at the start of the next passage. It opens with the description of his foundational deeds. He dug in and dug out by the skill of his tilth for himself and all belonging to him.
Skill of his tilth. That evokes agricultural labor, right? Building something from the ground up.
Yes, but it also sounds like by the skin of one's teeth, suggesting a tenacious struggle for survival and provision. He was clearly a powerful provider, someone who carved out a space.
And he didn't do it alone. He sweated his crew beneath his auspice for the living. That immediately brings to mind Genesis 3:19, "By the sweat of your brow you shall earn your bread," linking him to Adam's original toil. But auspice here is significant, isn't it? It means more than just under his authority.
It does. An auspice was originally an omen observed from the flight of birds, and Vico discusses auspices extensively in his Scienza Nuova, connecting HCE's actions to ancient divination and the very foundations of human society. So it gives his leadership a kind of ancient, quasi-religious authority.
Then he earned his dread, that dragon volant. What does that mean?
It suggests he's deposited the ashes of his dead, perhaps his enemies, his fears, his dread in an urn. And the dragon volant is a flying dragon, a common figure in heraldry and alchemy, where it can represent the philosophical union of Mercury and sulfur. But it could also, humorously, be an earwig with wings.
An earwig. HCE's nickname, right?
Exactly. It shows him as both this formidable, almost mythic figure dealing with dragons, and yet still linked to the mundane, even the pestilent.
So he's both a creator and, maybe playfully, a harbinger of less pleasant things, delivering them to boll weevils amain.
Right, that's a playful yet kind of dark twist on the Lord's Prayer, deliver us from evil, amen. Here it suggests he delivered them to all evils, or perhaps specifically to pests like boll weevils.
And here we identify him more clearly. That mighty liberator Humphrey Chimpden Earwicker, and begad he did, our ancestor most worshipful. The liberator, that's Daniel O'Connell, isn't it?
Unmistakably Daniel O'Connell, the preeminent leader of Catholic Ireland in the 19th century. This cements HCE's role as a powerful national historical figure. Humphrey Chimpden Earwicker, while incredibly complex, seems to be a portmanteau invoking the Babylonian monarch Nebuchadnezzar, Nabu-Kuduri-Usur, and maybe even HCE himself.
There's even a hint of widower in there, Swedish fru for wife.
Possibly. It adds to his complex identity, suggesting personal loss alongside public power. Is he a champion or an exterminator of pests like earwigs or boll weevils? It's deliberately ambiguous.
And the mantle of succession is directly referenced. Till he thought of a better one in his widower's house with that blush mantle upon him from Earsund to Earsund.
Yeah, widower's house could allude to Castletown House, which is famous for its many windows, or maybe George Bernard Shaw's play Widower's Houses. But the blush mantle is crucial. It's both a blush covering him, maybe from shame or exertion, but also a direct reference to Elijah casting his mantle upon Elisha as a sign of succession in the Book of Kings.
So it clearly foreshadows that despite his grandeur, HCE is ripe for replacement. The cycle must turn.
Exactly. That theme of replacement is constantly bubbling just beneath the surface.
The idea of rebirth and cycles is really brought to the fore now, isn't it? Directly hinting at the phoenix motif, and of course the famous song that gives the wake its title. It's almost as if they're trying to contain an unstoppable force.
This passage speaks directly to those cycles of return. And wood again could whispering grassies wake him, and may again when the fiery bird Decembers.
A fiery bird is the phoenix, obviously.
Of course. The phoenix, famously burning itself to rise anew from its ashes. But Joyce layers this with allusions to Jesus, maybe dismembered and rising from embers, and even to December, the end of the year, which further connects to the May-December romance motif, that recurring theme of an old man and a young woman.
So his potential return is framed as both mythic and potentially romantic, or at least generational.
Yes. And it's not just a mythic rebirth, there's a hope for truth to be passed down. And will again, if so be soothed by elder, to his younger shall be said, if truth is told from the old generation to the young. This suggests a desire for continuity, for the lessons of the past, maybe their version of the past, to be understood by the future, perhaps as a way to control the narrative of his fall.
And then the passage just dramatically culminates in a direct and absolutely unmistakable allusion to the traditional Irish ballad, Finnegans Wake.
Yes, the lines. Have you wines for my wedding? Did you bring bride and bedding? Will you whoop from my deading is awake? Uskud bawam, on hum muckandol, did you drink me dornell? They're almost a direct quote from the song, but with significant Joycian twists and compressions.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. For anyone listening who might not know the song, it tells the story of Tim Finnegan, a hod carrier who falls from a ladder, is presumed dead.
Right.
And then, at his wake, is miraculously revived when whiskey, the water of life, Euspia, is accidentally spilled on him. And he famously springs up and asks, "Do you think I'm dead?"
Exactly. And Joyce captures that energy. Ysgwyd is the Anglo-Irish ysgwba for whiskey. And a muckandul is an Anglo-Irish exclamation, a kind of defiant shout, roughly, your soul's from the devil.
And the idiom, dead as a doornail, is directly challenged right there. Did ye drink me doornail?
Precisely. This sudden outburst brings us right to the core conflict of these pages. Finnegan is awake, or threatening to wake, but the surrounding mourners, the living, desperately want him to stay dead. It sets up this incredible tension that drives the next whole section, the paradoxical effort to suppress life itself.
Which takes us directly into the heart of the matter, convincing Finnegan, or HCE, to stay put, to remain in his repose. The mourners are, well, they're quite insistent, aren't they? And it's a masterclass in veiled threats and persuasive arguments to prevent him from fully reviving.
They approach him with this kind of civil but very firm address. Now be aisy, good Mr. Finnimore, sir, and take your leisure like a god on pension, and don't be walking abroad. It's that classic Anglo-Irish idiom, you know, acknowledging him with respect, "Sir, good Mr. Finnimore," while simultaneously telling him he's better off where he is, retired like a god, lest he cause trouble by walking abroad.
And they paint a rather grim picture of the world he'd return to, reminding him of all the dangers and maybe betrayals. Lose yourself in Heliopolis now, they warn him. This is a brilliant pun, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic. Heliopolis, the Egyptian city of the sun, the source of the Phoenix myth, but also Heliopolis, the Dublin nickname for the viceregal lodge when Tim Healy was Governor General.
And Joyce considered Healy Parnell's Judas, didn't he? The one who betrayed the leader.
Exactly. So it's a subtle but potent reminder of Irish political betrayal, a warning that the world is no safer, no less treacherous than it was before his fall.
And they describe the treacherous, winding roads of Dublin, filled with historical scars. Places like Capilavaster, a mix of Buddha's birthplace Capilavastu, and maybe Irish for his master's horse, Chapelizid Calvary.
Right, Calvary bringing in the crucifixion, Parnell's political suffering, but also cavalry, the agents of the state. They give him a tour of historical Dublin and even Viking England, Northumbrian and the Phibsbarrow and Watling's Raid and the Watling Street and the Bower Moor. These are real places mixed with historical events and songs like The Foggy Dew.
And they tell him he'd encounter things that would just turn him against life. Meeting some sick old bankrupt, or the Cotterex donkey with his shoe hanging, or a slut snoring with an impure infant on a bench. These sound like Buddha's four sights, don't they?
The direct echoes, the old man, the sick man, the corpse, the ascetic, the sights that led Buddha to renounce worldly life. The mourners are essentially telling Finnegan, look, the world has gotten worse. It's a place of suffering and decay. It's not somewhere you should return to.
And depart from Devlin as hard as Nugent knew. What's that referring to?
It's a twist on Gerald Nugent's ode written on leaving Ireland, about the sorrow of exile. But here it implies that leaving the green pastures of life is hard, sure, but he should just accept it. Let his ghost have no grievance. He's simply better off dead in the grave.
And what a comfortable grave they describe for him. It's this fascinating blend of Viking and Egyptian burial rites. You're better off, sir, where you are, prime sign in the full of your dress, blood eagle waistcoat and all.
Right. Prime sign refers to a Viking practice of marking someone with the sign of the cross before baptism, giving them a sort of quasi-Christian status, not fully pagan, not fully Christian.
Okay.
And Viking burial customs, according to scholars like Maurer, whom Joyce read, included burying men and women in their full dress. But then you get the gruesome blood eagle waistcoat.
That sounds awful. What is it?
It was a particularly brutal Viking vengeance custom, supposedly involving cutting the victim's ribs from the spine, breaking them into a wing-like shape, and pulling the lungs out. It's a stark reminder of a violent past, serving as both a kind of morbid honor and maybe a subtle threat.
Yikes. But they also offer comfort. They tell him he'll be remembering your shapes and sizes on the pillow of your baby curls.
Yes, that connects to Buddha's enlightenment, where he remembered all his past lives. It offers this comforting, almost maternal image of his afterlife, a peaceful remembering.
And the setting of his tomb is quite specific and mythic, too. Under your sycamore by the Chlíodhna water.
That invokes the myth of Osiris, the Egyptian god of the underworld, who is famously buried in a sycamore grove, with a sycamore tree growing over his tomb. Chlíodhna water is Old Norse for well or spring, again blending those cultures. They even mention Tory Island clay, which was believed to scare off varmints, rats, or vermin. His grave is protected, secure.
He's given everything he could possibly want in the afterlife. Pouch, gloves, flask, briquet, kerchief, ring, and amberula, the whole treasure of the pyre.
That's a direct reference to Maur's account of Viking kings being burned on a pyre with rich offerings, weapons, gold, treasures. It paints the underworld as a place of abundance and honor, a lavish retirement package, basically.
And he'll join a pantheon of mythical and historical figures down there. Homan and Broin Baroque and Polo Lonin and No Bucket Nosler and the Genghis Khan.
It's a fantastic list. Homer mixed with Nebuchadnezzar, No Bucket Nosler, Brian Boru, Broin Baroque, the poor old woman, Shan Van Vogt, Ireland personified, Lonin, a figure cursed by St. Patrick, and a blend of Guinness and Genghis Khan. The message is clear. You're in good company down here. Stay put. Relax.
And the living will continue to honor him, or at least that's what they say they'll do. We'll be coming here to the Ombre Players to rake your gravel and bringing you presents, won't we, Fenians?
Right. Ombre is an old card game, but it also sounds like the Italian word for shadows or ghosts. So the shadow players will come. And Fenians refers to the Irish Revolutionary Brotherhoods, but also to Finn McCool's ancient warrior band, the Fianna. They're offering a pact of remembrance, a promise to tend his grave.
They promise proper offerings, too, not cheap stuff, explicitly not shabby little imagettes, penny dirts, and dodge my eyes you buy in the city stores.
Yeah, shabby combines shabby with shabti figures. Shabtis were small figurines placed in ancient Egyptian tombs, mentioned in the Book of the Dead. They were supposed to come alive in the afterlife to do the deceased's work, replacing earlier forms of human sacrifice.
Oh, okay, so they're saying, we won't give you those cheap substitutes.
Exactly. They're promising genuine, natural offerings, offerings of the field, reminiscent of Osiris's paradise, the field of reeds and offerings. It's a promise of true veneration, not just cheap trinkets or penny dreadful stories, penny dirts, or things that make you look away. Dodge my eyes. And Sati stores hints at Hindu Sati, widow immolation, adding another layer of morbid ritual.
They even offer him mystical remedies in this rather persuasive sales pitch to stay dead. Meliodores that Dr. Faraday, the medicine man, taught to gooden you. That sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Meliodores is a gorgeous Joycean word. It could combine milli, thousand, with Greek doura, gifts, or maybe even meli, honey, and doro, golden. But you're right to be suspicious. Notice the physician, Dr. Faraday, the medicine man.
Madison man like Madison Avenue advertising.
Yeah, exactly. Combined with medicine man, it hints at a sorcerer who might be peddling poison disguised as a cure. It's this dubious blend of sweet promises and hidden dangers. It's essentially a persuasive, maybe even insidious, sales pitch designed to keep Finnegan in his slumber.
And that stupor seems important. Poppy Pap's a passport out, and honey is the holiest thing ever was, and some goat's milk.
Yes. Poppy Pap clearly refers to opium or maybe laudanum-soaked posset sometimes given to babies to keep them quiet, suggesting a form of induced stupor, maybe even euthanasia to keep him subdued. Honey, of course, is associated with Swift's sweetness and light and the biblical land flowing with milk and honey, the promised land.
So they're offering him the nectar of the gods, basically. The pot keeps the nectar cup full, keeping him happy and sedated in the underworld.
Right. And they assure him his fame is secure. It's spreading like basilica's ointment. That's an allusion to Don Basilio's Auraria about calumny, how slander spreads, in Rossini's Barber of Seville. But basilican ointment was also a real patent medicine, some kinds containing beeswax.
And Fintan Lylers, Irish nationalists, have piped you over border. What does that mean?
It could mean they've piped him overboard, like jettisoning him, or maybe into exile over the border, perhaps into Ulster. His influence, good or bad, is spreading, even beyond Ireland. Whole households beyond the Bothnians, Gulf of Bothnia between Sweden and Finland. They're literally calling names after you, both naming things in his honor, and maybe calling him names, blaming him.
So the argument is, your legacy is secure, your fame is spreading, just stay put, you've done enough.
Exactly. Your work is done, enjoy the retirement benefits.
The narrative then shifts, almost seamlessly, to deifying Finnegan in his absence, painting him as this grand old man whose legacy underpins absolutely everything. It feels like a continuous, almost desperate attempt to inflate his past importance to justify his current absence, keep him happy where he is.
That's a great way to put it. The mourners depict him as this enduring figure, the constant subject of veneration. The men here's always talking of you, sitting around on the pig's cheeks under the sacred roof tree, over the bowls of memory where every hollow holds a hallow, with a pledge to the drangs in the salmon house.
Okay, let's break that down. Men here.
It's both gentlemen, mynheer in Dutch, and menheer, a standing stone suggesting permanence, like an ancient monument.
And sitting around on the pig's cheeks. That sounds odd.
It alludes to the Chinese written character for home, which is a pig under a roof, and maybe also to the Herero people of Africa, whose ancestors were said to sit on ox skulls in their homes. It grounds his memory in these ancient foundational domestic customs.
And the sacred roof tree.
That's a direct reference to the Osiris myth again. A tree supposedly grew from his buried body, and its trunk was used as a roof beam in a palace. It symbolizes his enduring presence, literally holding up the structure, even in death.
Wow. And the bowls of memory.
Those are Viking cups used for ritual remembrance toasts. And every hollow holds a hallow, emphasizes the sacred, hallowed nature of his memory. They drink till the drangs, till the dregs, finishing the drink. But drangs were also a class of Scandinavian warriors or free servants. It's a toast to his memory and maybe his followers.
And the Salmon House is a specific chapelized pub, right? Linking the mythic right back to the local Dublin scene.
Precisely. His monument is described as grand. Admiring to our Super-Shillelagh, where the palm sweat on high is the mark of your monument.
A Super-Shillelagh, like a giant club.
Yes, an enormous cudgel, or maybe even a tree, representing his manliness, his phallic power, perhaps. It likely refers to the Wellington Monument in Phoenix Park, which is a massive obelisk. The palm sweat on high could be the mark of his hand, his exertion in building it, or maybe an allusion to a hereditary cane soaking up ancestral sweat, making it a sacred object in some cultures. His legacy is literally carved into the landscape.
So every toothpick is a piece of him. All the toothpicks ever Ironesians chewed on are chips chipped from that battery block.
Yeah, this connects the Irish people, Ironesians, from Ayr, Ireland, Greek Irene Peace, Nessos Island, to toothpicks, which can be small shillelaghs, chipped from the very foundation of the Wellington Monument, which was built on the site of the old salute battery. His presence, even in fragmented form, is everywhere. He's the source material.
But it's deeply ironic, isn't it, considering the very next lines. If you were bowed and soiled and let down itself from the winter of the load, it was that paddy planters might pack up plenty.
Deeply ironic. Bowed and soiled suggests bought and sold, and also bowed down and soiled, like St. Patrick being sold into slavery in Ireland. He was let down from the one of the load, maybe let down by God, the owner of the land. And why? So that British paddy planters, a derogatory term for English settlers in Ireland, could pack up plenty, could prosper.
So his suffering is justified because it benefited the colonizers. That's incredibly cynical.
It's a profoundly cynical piece of Panglossianism, as scholars call it. The idea that this is the best of all possible worlds, even justifying suffering. His fall, they argue, was for the greater good of others, which is a pretty bitter pill to swallow for a supposed hero figure.
Wow. And the passage continues with this complex, almost contradictory praise. When you were undone in every point for the lapse of goddesses, you showed our labor lasses how to free was easy. What does undone mean here?
Undone can mean naked or untied, like the Gilead husband in Siberia who had to be unbound during his wife's childbirth pains. It connects to being in the lap of the gods, or maybe the lapses of goddesses. And it suggests he showed labor lasses, working class girls, how free was easy, implying a permissive nature, perhaps even seduction or sexual freedom. He's a figure of both sacrifice and potentially questionable morals.
Then they elevate him even further. The game old gun, they do be saying. Ska, that was a planter for you, a spicer of them all. Big gog, but he was, the G.O.G. He's done and gun now.
Game old gun evokes Michael Gunn, the manager of the Gaiety Theatre, maybe Gladstone, the grand old man, G.O.M., even the biblical giants, Gog and Magog, GOG skull is the Danish toast skull. He was a planter, a colonizer again, but also a spicer of life, someone who added zest.
Brudden is clearly dead and gone.
Right. But they are after finding the sores of his sedek, meaning they are after finding, or perhaps better at finding, the sores or maybe the shoresh, Hebrew for root of his sedek, Hebrew for justice, or maybe even his zedek, Czech for buttocks. They're picking through his remains, his legacy, for clues to his real impact, both good and bad.
And even in death, he's revered. Peace to his great limbs, the Huoshed, with the last league-long rest of him, while the million-candled eye of Tuscar sweeps the Moylian main.
Hooshed is a fascinating blend. It suggests Buddha, emphasizing peace and rest, but Bodach in Irish and Scots Gaelic is a churl or an old man, sometimes a spectre, and Bothosh in Anglo-Irish can mean a lout, so he's both saintly and maybe a bit rough. The million-candle eye of Tuscar refers to the powerful Tuscar Rock lighthouse off the Wexford coast, sweeping the Sea of Moyle between Ireland and Scotland. It's this grand, almost religious send-off, emphasizing his vast reach and importance, even in repose.
They proclaim his universal renown. There was never a warlord in Greater Rans and Bretland, no, nor in all Pike County like you, they say. No, nor a king, nor an Ard king, Bung king, Sun king, or Hung king. That's quite a list.
It is. Greater Inns is Greater Ireland. Bretland is Britain or Wales. Pike County references Mark Twain's Missouri characters, giving it an American frontier feel. And the types of kings. Ard king, Irish ardry, High king. Bung king, a publican controlling the beer tap or bung. Sun king, Louis XIV, the Sun king. Maybe even a hung king like Robert Emmet, hanged, drawn, and quartered. It's a litany of his supposed greatness across all strata of society, a kind of hyperbolic flattery meant to keep him content in his grave.
And his legendary feats are recounted. That you could fell in Elm Street 12 urchins couldn't ring round and hoist high the stone that Liam failed.
Yeah, the tree felling recalls Gladstone, who famously chopped down trees on his estate to show his vigor, and hoisting high the stone that Liam failed refers to the Lia Fail, the stone of destiny at Tura, which was supposed to cry out when the rightful High King of Ireland touched it, but failed to cry out for some contenders. It also evokes ancient stone-lifting feats of strength, like shot putting. He's portrayed as a figure of immense, almost superhuman strength.
He's a Nicolo-Malo, the rays of our fortunes, and the fawne man at the funeral to compass our cause.
Nicolo-Malo suggests Finn McCool, McCumhale-More, the great son of Cumhale, but also James McCullough, who was involved in minting copper coinage, Woods halfpence, in the 18th century. So he's the rays of their fortunes, but also the funny man, like a jester at the funeral. He's both heroic ancestor and maybe a bit of a trickster.
They challenge anyone to compare. If you was Hogabully itself and most thrifty like you was taking water still, where was your to lay the cable, or who was the batter could better your grace?
Even if he was a rough hogglebully, bogeyman, and thrifty, or maybe fretful, maybe taking the waters at a spa like Bath or Baden-Baden, who else could perform Herculean feats like lay the cable, referencing the laying of the transatlantic telegraph cable? Or who was the batter who could better your grace? That evokes the famous cricketer W.G. Grace, but also addresses Finnegan himself as your grace, like a duke or king.
So the praise is just extravagant. It feels almost like a form of flattery designed to keep him dormant, to make him feel so irreplaceable that he won't even attempt to return.
That's exactly the sense you get. It's less about genuine grief and more about managing the situation, keeping the giant asleep.
Okay, so after all that extravagant, almost over-the-top praise, the mourners really seem to dial up the efforts to keep Finnegan firmly in his slumber. This next section details various rites and incantations that are meant to ensure his continued dormancy. It feels like a full court press against his potential revival.
It really does. They start by acknowledging his imitators and successors, but they quickly dismiss them as inferior. Magnus Macaulay can take you off to the pure perfection, and Leatherbags Reynolds tries your shuffle and cut.
Magnus Macaulay. That sounds like Thomas Babington Macaulay, the historian and politician.
Very likely. And Leatherbags Reynolds probably alludes to the song Larry Leatherbags, or maybe Leatherbags Donnell. They're saying others might try to mimic him, take you off, maybe try his shuffle and cut, like a card sharp, implying trickery. But they can't reach his pure perfection. The implication is clear. No one can truly replace you, so just stay put.
And the attempts to define who he truly was and how others perceive him continue to be layered and complex. But as Hopkins puts it, you were the pale eggy naggy and a kiss to Tilly up.
Hopkins and Hopkins were Dublin jewelers, right? Yes. And egginagi seems to combine eggnog with the Hungarian egginagi, meaning a big or a great one, while kiss to tilly up brings in Hungarian kiss for little and tilly, that small extra measure, like the 13th item in a baker's dozen. Joyce even titled a collection of essays 12 and a tilly.
So it's a playful way of saying he was significant, important, a big one, but maybe also a little bit extra, a bonus, something beyond the standard measure.
Exactly. He doesn't quite fit the standard mold.
Then there's a rather blunt observation. We calls him the journeyal Bugalovs, since he went Jerusalem faring in Arcia Manor.
Huh. Bugalovs is pretty clear slang for buggers off, combined with journeyal, general. And going to Jerusalem was slang for getting drunk. Jerusalem faring might allude to a 12th century Norwegian crusader king, Sigurd Magnusson, known as Sigurd Jorsalfair, Jerusalem Fair, but also perhaps General Bobrikov, the repressive Russian governor-general of Finland, whose assassination is a recurring motif in the Wake.
And Arcia Manor.
Well, that puns neatly on Ars and Asia Minor, so he's portrayed as this boisterous, often absent, sometimes crude figure who has caused trouble far and wide, a disruptive force who just fuggers off.
His virility is also mentioned, contrasted with figures of religious authority. You had a game your cock than Pete, Jake, or Martin, and your archgoose of geese stubbled for All Angels' Day.
Game your cock clearly implies a gamecock, a fighting bird known for its spirit, but also, unmistakably, a penis. He's contrasted with Pete, Jack, and Martin, who represent the Catholic, Anglican, and Lutheran Calvinist churches in Swift's satirical Sictor, A Tale of a Tub.
So his vital, perhaps pagan energy surpasses the more staid religious figures.
That's the implication. And the Archgoose of Dees, stubbled for All Angels' Day, refers to a stubble goose, a goose fattened on the stubble left after harvest, traditionally eaten around Michaelmas, September 29th, close to All Angels' Day.
Right.
It connects him again to harvest cycles and feasts.
And then comes a direct warning, drawing on ancient rites. So may the priest of 7 worms and scalding tay-boil papa vestre come never near you. Where does that come from?
That invokes the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The deceased had to face dangers in the underworld, the Tuat, including things like the 9 worms that lived on the dead and pits of boiling water. The Kerheb priest performed rites to protect the deceased.
And papa vestre.
That seems to allude to Norse names for Irish priests, papai, found on the Orkney Islands, vestry or westre. So it's blending ancient Egyptian protective spells with these echoes of Norse-Irish history. It's a powerful incantation designed to keep him safe in the afterlife, and therefore contained, unable to return.
They then offer a kind of celestial farewell, trying to coax him into a peaceful, eternal rest. As your hair grows weeder beside the Liffey that's in heaven, Hep hurrah there,
Yeah.
hero. 7 times there, too, we salute you.
This is incredibly rich with symbolism. Buddha, when he renounced his luxurious life, cut off his hair and threw it towards heaven. Osiris is often seen as the wheat god, representing resurrection through grain, so wheater links him to new life, even in death. The Liffey that's in heaven connects to the celestial Nile in Egyptian mythology, or the river Heb.
And the salute?
Hero is an epithet used for Buddha, and he was supposedly saluted 7 times by the gods after his enlightenment. 7 times there, too, might suggest a 21-gun salute, 3 by 7, a full military honor, or maybe even the gladiator's salute. We who are about to die salute you. It's this grand theatrical farewell meant to assure him of his lasting glory if he just stays put.
His dismembered body is even outlined in the stars, like a cosmic dispersion meant to ensure his pieces remain scattered and he can't reassemble himself. The whole bag of kits is where you flung them that time. Your heart is in the system of the she-wolf, and your crested head is in the tropic of Copacabana. Your feet are in the cloister of Virgo.
Bag of kits means everything, the whole lot, like a soldier's kit bag. This directly recalls Osiris, who was famously dismembered by his brother Set, his body parts scattered throughout Egypt. Here, HCE's body is mapped onto constellations.
She-wolf.
Lupus, the she-wolf constellation linked to Romulus and Remus and the founding of Rome, and Daniel O'Connell's heart was actually buried in Rome, adding another layer.
And Capricorn.
His crested head is in the Tropic of Capricorn. Capricorn, the horned goat, but maybe with a pun on Greek kopros kapron, meaning pig shit.
Charming.
And Virgo. His feet are in the cloister of Virgo, associating the maiden constellation with a cloister of virgin nuns. It's a cosmic dispersal of his essence, physically scattering him across the heavens, hopefully rendering him unable to reform and return.
And the Egyptian burial rites are invoked again to really reinforce his dormancy. Your Ola is in the region of Sahols, And that's ashore as you were born.
Yes. Sahu in Egyptian mythology refers to the incorruptible spiritual body or habitation of the soul in the afterlife, a safe, unmolested place for his spirit. Ashore as you were born, safe and sound, back where you started.
Then we get this string of references that seem to come straight out of Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. Your shuck-tick swell, and that there Texas is tow linen. The lonesome roam to Lafayette is ended. Drop in your tracks, babe, be not unrested.
It's amazing, isn't it? It shifts right into this American vernacular. Shuck-tick is a corn shuck mattress. The Texas was the officer's cabin structure on a steamboat. Tow linen shirts were common rough clothing. Lonesome Rome is the lonesome road. The road to Lafayette often symbolized the end of life's journey in old songs. Drop in your tracks means die suddenly. It's this folksy yet firm command to just let go, give up, and stay peaceful in death. Be done with it.
And the ultimate binding incantation comes from the head bottle watcher. This is just a spectacular fusion of cultures and roles.
It truly is. The head bottle watcher of the Temple of Isid, Totem Kalmum, saith, I know thee, mother jar, I know thee, salvation boat. It's incredible. Head bottle watcher sounds like body snatcher or maybe bottle washer, a lowly servant. Totem Kalmum is totally calm, but also clearly Tutankhamun, whose tomb famously contained canopic jars, often with heads resembling the king's, holding his organs.
And Temple of Isid.
That brings in Shepelizod, the Dublin suburb where the story is partly set, and the Temple of Isis, Osiris's wife. Mether jar is an Anglo-Irish wooden drinking vessel, maybe like a pint of stout, but also recalls those Egyptian canopic jars. The salvation boat is the Neshmet boat from the Book of the Dead, which carried gods or the deceased.
So this whole speech, for we have performed upon thee, thou Abram Menoshan, who comest ever without being invoked, whose coming is unknown, all the things which the company of the precentors and of the grammarians of Chrispatrick's ordered concerning thee in the matter of the work of thy tombing. It's basically an ancient spell.
Yes, it's structured like an ancient Egyptian religious formula, almost like a spell from the Book of the Dead, or perhaps akin to a Jewish burial ceremony, Kaddish, spoken directly to the deceased. It aims to ensure they stay dead and don't return as a troublesome ghost.
Abram Menoshan.
That blends abomination with Abraman, an old term for a beggar feigning madness, maybe linking back to Abraham. He's this unpredictable entity who comest ever without being invoked.
And the authority performing these rites, the precentors and of the grammarians of Chrispatrick's.
These are the church leaders. Precentors lead the singing, and scholars, grammarians, of Dublin's two main cathedrals, Christ Church and St. Patrick's. It seamlessly merges ancient Egyptian rituals with the authority of the modern established Irish Church. It's a binding spell, drawing power across millennia and cultures, all focused on keeping him securely in his grave in the matter of the work of thy tombing.
And the final, very firm dismissal. How of the shipman, steep wall, sleep well.
How is a burial mound, a tumulus or barrow, particularly used for Viking graves. It was also the site of the Norse Parliament Thingmote in Dublin. It directly references Viking ship burials described by Maurer. Steep wall might echo the Old Norse name for Steep Home Island in the Bristol Channel, steep plain. It's effectively a definitive ancient command, sleep well, sealing him in his grave with every possible assurance and perhaps threat.
Right. So Finnegan is supposed to stay dead, sealed away by these powerful, ancient, cross-cultural rites. But what about the living? The next section seems designed to reassure him, or maybe reassure themselves, that life simply goes on, business as usual, in the household and the city, almost as if he was never truly missed.
Precisely. They try very hard to convince him that his absence hasn't caused any real disruption at all. Everything's going on the same, or so it appeals to all of us in the old homestead here. Homestead is homestead, obviously, but maybe also plays on the old Norse Homer for island, suggesting this sort of isolated, contained, unchanging world where his presence is no longer central.
And despite the background noise of illness, coughing's all of the sanctuary, bads grant to me influenza, a nod to coffins, church sanctuaries, and influenza, the daily routine is perfectly preserved. The horn for breakfast, one a gong for lunch and dinner chime.
Yes, it establishes a clear, structured day with different signals for meals. The horn could even be a croissant, adding a mundane, almost comforting detail. Life continues with its ordinary rhythms.
And this stability is even framed in historical or allegorical terms. As popular as when Beli the First was king and his members met in the Diet of Man. What's that about?
Well, Beli the First likely refers to William the Conqueror, who was known for his girth and apparently died from complications related to it. Maybe he was on a diet. Diet also refers to a legislative assembly, like the House of Keys on the Isle of Man. And it clearly evokes Aesop's fable of the belly and the members, where the limbs rebel against the seemingly idle belly only to find the whole body suffers. It's a way of saying that even without the head, HCE, the established order, the body politic, continues to function harmoniously.
And local economy and commerce are just ticking along nicely. The same shop slop in the window, Jacob's letter crackers and Dr. Tipple's Vide Cocoa, and the Eswards desiccated soup beside Mother's Seagull syrup.
These are all real Dublin products from the era. Jacob's biscuits, making letter crackers, alphabet biscuits, Dr. Tipple's Vide Cocoa, Edward's desiccated soup, Mother Seagull's curative syrup tonic. Joyce grounds us firmly in the mundane, showing these familiar Dublin brands.
It reminds you that the grand mythological cycles of the Wake are playing out against the backdrop of everyday, lived experience in Dublin, tying the cosmic right down to the commonplace to the shop window. And it even subtly brings in the Jacob and Esau motif again, Esau selling his birthright for a pottage of soup.
Absolutely. And they report the local economic news. Meat took a drop when Riley Parsons failed, coal's short, but we've plenty of bog in the yard, and barley's up again, be grain to it. So the price of meat is down because a business failed, there's a coal shortage, but they have peat turf from the bog, and barley prices are up. Be grain to it, like begrudged to it. It's mundane local stuff designed to show continuity and stability, a world that manages perfectly well without him.
And the children. The offspring that HCE supposedly perpetrified. They're doing well too, apparently. The lads is attending school Nesson's regular, sir, spelling bee-sneeze with hathatancy and turning out tables by the mute application.
School Nessons probably refers to the Church of the Three Sons of Nesson on Ireland's Eye, an island near Howth, where St. Nesson's Abbey stood, and where the historical Book of Howth was supposedly commenced. So their education has historical roots.
Spelling bee-sneeze.
It suggests a spelling bee, and bee's knees meaning the height of perfection, but maybe also, ironically, just business. And hathatancy seems to blend the herb tansy with the Greek word athanasia, meaning immortality.
Immortality, why?
Well, bees produce beeswax, and tansy and mud were apparently used, along with beeswax, in some ancient Egyptian embalming practices. So there's a subtle link back to death rites, even in their education.
Wow. And turning out tables by the mute application.
That suggests multiplication tables, obviously, but maybe also table turning, as in seances and spiritualism, and even ancient Egyptian writing on mud tablets. It's this whimsical yet pointed way of showing their education is progressing, albeit with some very Joycian twists on the methods used.
They assure him the boys are behaving themselves. They're all for the books and never pegging smashers after Tombo Glassars or Timmy the Tosser.
Meaning they're studying hard and not causing mischief, like pegging or throwing rocks, smashers, at windows, glassars, maybe someone with a glass eye or easily broken, or engaging in masturbation, tosser.
And the passage ends with this rather joyous affirmation of his paternity, almost celebrating his role as progenitor even as they keep him dead. 'Tis really the truth. No, isn't it, Roman Pathorix? You were the double-jointed janitor the morning they were delivered, and you'll be a grandfer yet entirely when the right hand seizes what the love arm knows.
Roman Pathorix clearly blends Roman Catholics and St. Patrick. Double-jointed janitor is a wonderful phrase, a doubly joyed progenitor. Janitor links to Janus, the Roman god of doorways and beginnings, the porter or gatekeeper, reinforcing HCE's role as the family father. Joyce even had a note here. Great joy twins.
And the final phrase, when the right hand seizes what the love arm knows.
That seems to allude to the traditional Irish Clíodhna ring, which depicts two hands holding a heart, often associated with love and marriage, and maybe links to the twins Shem and Sean. It could also echo Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis. The right hand seizes, referring to Adonis's hand. Or the Bible verse Matthew 6.3, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. It emphasizes this secret, intimate bond and the enduring nature of his family, suggesting that his legacy lives on powerfully through his children, whether he's physically present or not.
The family is indeed central to this continued narrative, isn't it? And the mourners go into quite a bit of detail about each of the children, assuring Finnegan they're thriving in his absence, even developing their own distinct complex characters, like they're moving on.
Exactly. They begin with Kevin, who represents the Sean archetype. Kevin's just a dote with his cherub cheek, chucking ogres on walls, and his little lamp and school belt and bag of nicks, playing postman's knock around the diggings.
Dote means like a darling, a lovable child.
Yes. He's angelic, cherub cheek, innocently chalking ogres on walls, which suggests the ancient Irish Ogham alphabet, maybe like prehistoric rock paintings done with red ochre. He carries his symbolic lamp and school belt, key attributes of Sean the postman.
And his bag of nicks?
Could be marbles or maybe tricks. And he's playing Postman's Knock, a children's kissing game, linking again to Sean the Post. He's presented as the idealized, wholesome, perhaps slightly naive child, the good son.
Then there's Jerry, or Shem, who is presented as, well, a bit more mischievous and rebellious, the artist figure. If the seep were milk, you could leave his oldie by his adade, but law's sake, the devil does be in that nerps of a Jerry sometimes, the Tian-Tan plaid boy.
Okay, if the seep were milk plays on Dutch zeep for soap, but also the Cranach verse, if the sea were ink, which the poet Thomas Moore set to the tune of the song, lay his sword by his side, and leaves his oldie by his eyed. Sounds like leave his sold by his side, bringing in that tragic romance.
So Shem is associated with ink, writing, maybe betrayal.
Perhaps. He's called a nerps, which is German for a whippersnapper, a little rascal, and a Tarantan plaid boy, a complex mix of the notorious British paramilitary force, the Black and Tans, and a playboy, an irresponsible young man, maybe wearing tartan plaid. He embodies conflict and rebellion.
And the really infamous part, making encostive income out of the last of his lavings and writing a blue streak over his Borsday shirt.
Yes, this implies he's literally making income, from his own excrement or urine, lavings, possibly from costive, constipated, or maybe bathwater. It's a shocking image of the artist transforming the base, the rejected, into art.
And writing a blue streak.
It means talking or writing endlessly and rapidly, but it also clearly foreshadows the indecency associated with Joyce's own work, particularly Ulysses, which was sometimes called the Blue Book of Eccles, and writing on his birthday shirt, or maybe Borse like a market. He's the unruly, creative, perhaps even obscene one.
And finally, Hetty Jane, who is Issy. She's depicted as innocent, yet with a hint of emerging flirtatiousness, capturing that transition from child to young woman. Hetty Jane's a child of Mary. She'll be coming, in her white of gold, with a torch of ivy to rekindle the flame on Felix Day.
Child of Mary refers to a Catholic girl's sodality, emphasizing purity. She's presented with very symbolic imagery, white of gold, evokes liturgical colors used for Christmas and Easter, and titles for the Virgin Mary like Tower of Ivory and House of Gold. The torch of ivy represents evergreen life, eternal youth.
And she's there to rekindle the flame on Felix Day, that happy, lucky day, linking back to O Felix Culpa and the phoenix bird rising from the fire. She's the promise of renewal, a vibrant, almost sacredly innocent figure.
Yes, but then there's this quick shift, almost a glimpse into her future with Essie Shanahan, who seems to be an older, more worldly version of Essie. But Essie Shanahan has let down her skirts. You remember Essie in our Luna's convent?
Let down her skirts is a common euphemism for entering adulthood, right?
Yeah.
Becoming a young woman.
Exactly. Luna's convent evokes Our Lady, Holy Mary, and the Latin Luna for moon, but maybe also Il Conte di Luna from Verdi's opera, Il Trovatore. She was called Holly Mary, Holly and Ivy, Merry Christmas, because her lips were so ready, berry, and Pia de Puribel in the Red Miners riots was on about her.
Pia de Puribel.
It seems to combine Latin pura et pia bella, pure and pious wars, possibly referencing Vico's stage of religious wars, with the Portobello Rathmines area of Dublin, pure bell sounding like Portobello. And the Red Miners riots refers to the Portobello riots of 1920 between British soldiers, redcoats, and locals, possibly miners or just Dubliners, miners. It hints at both purity and controversy, suggesting a burgeoning sexuality that is already causing a stir, attracting perhaps unwelcome attention.
And she's making a name for herself. Were I a clerk designate to the Williams Woods manufacturers, I'd poster those powders on every jam in the town. She's making her rep at Lanners twice nightly.
This implies that if the speaker were a clerk for Williams Wood, a Dublin ironmonger or jam manufacturer, he'd put up posters of her pouters, her pouting lips on every jam or doorpost, maybe like the blood smeared on the doorposts in Exodus during Passover. She's making her reputation, but with a definite undertone of demi-rep, a woman of questionable chastity performing twice nightly at a venue associated with Caddy Lanner.
Caddy Lanner was a famous ballet dancer and choreographer.
Yes, but she also adapted ballet for the less refined tastes of the music hall. So Essie Issy performing there suggests a performer who might be bending to popular, potentially less sophisticated tastes, carving out her own identity, perhaps with a touch of scandal.
And the description of her performance is quite vivid, even suggestive. With the tabarine tam-tammers of the whirligig-magees, beats that cachucha flat. 'Twould dilate your heart to go.
Tabourine tam-tammers evoke small drums, tambourines, or gongs, tam-tams, making a lot of noise, kicking up a row. Whirligig-magees could be energetic dances, but whirligig can also be slang for testicles. She beats that cachucha flat. Cachucha is a Spanish dance, but it was also slang for female genitalia.
So the performance is energetic, maybe a bit vulgar.
Certainly suggestive. And the phrase, "'twould dilate your heart to go," plays on delight, but also maybe dilate your eyes to see, or even suggests sexual arousal. It's this tantalizing, perhaps slightly scandalous vision of Issy's burgeoning womanhood, ensuring HC knows that life, desire, and performance continue to flourish without him.
Right, so despite all these assurances that Finnegan should just rest easy, the mourners are still acutely aware of his lingering presence, his potential to stir. They're constantly trying to suppress any hint of revival. This really feels like a battle of wills now, both psychological and physical, to keep him dormant.
It truly is. You see them physically restraining him, just as the four old men will restrain the character Jan later in the wake. "Aisy now, you decent man, with your knees, and lie quiet and repose your honor's lordship. Hold him here, Ezekiel Irons, and may God strengthen you."
Ezekiel Irons. That name sounds familiar.
He's the parish clerk in Sheridan Le Fanu's novel The House by the Churchyard, which is set in Chapelizod, and the name Ezekiel itself means God will strengthen. Adding a layer of almost desperate irony to the command to hold him down, they're literally pinning him.
And they seem to identify the source of his stirring. "It's our warm spirits, boys, he's sporing. Demetrius O'Flaganin, cork that cure for the Clancardies."
He's sporing, sensing or smelling the whiskey, the warm spirits, on their breath. Just like in the original ballad Finnegans Wake, the smell or touch of whiskey could revive him, so they order, "Cork that cure," meaning cork the bottle of whiskey, preventing any accidental resurrection. O'Flaganin obviously suggests a flagon of drink, and the Clancardies were known for losing their estates due to drink and debt.
They chide him for having swamped enough since Portobello to float the Pomeroy.
Meaning he's drunk enough whiskey, perhaps during the earlier Portobello riots reference, to float a large ship like the Pomeroy. Then the four mourners, the ones restraining him, are invoked by name or function. "Seshni here Pat Coy," and "Fetch you Pam Yates," "Be nather angst of Ramowich."
That sounds biblical again.
It seems to echo the sacrifice of Isaac, with Ramowich sounding like Avramovich, Russian for son of Abraham. They are both his guards and his potential executioners, and showing his continued sleep. Pat Coy might be St. Patrick, Pam Yates may be Pontius Pilate. It's complex.
And then comes the definitive command for slumber, almost like a lullaby, but with a very dark edge. "Here's Lumbos. Where misties swaddle 'em, where mischiefs lodge none, where mysteries pour kind on, oh sleepy, so be yet."
Lumbo suggests his loin, his lumbar region, but also limbo, and maybe just that he slumbers. He's in a place where misty swaddlum, London mist, or misty swaddling clothes, where mishes lodge none, mischief, or maybe German mischer, meddlers can't get in, and where mysteries pour kind on. Mysteries are kind to him, or pour down kindly. It's a final plea for him to simply sleep well, and so be yet. So be it, amen. A final incantation for eternal rest.
Their surveillance, it seems, extends to the entire household, just to ensure nothing disturbs his supposed peace.
Yeah.
I've an eye on Queer Behan and old Kate and the butter, trust me.
Yes, the maid, Kate, and the manservant or butler, Behan, are being watched, suspected of petty theft, specifically stealing butter. This might echo Great Expectations, where Pip falsely suspected the servants of stealing food he'd given to Magwitch. It highlights this paranoid, slightly decaying atmosphere within the household, even in his supposed absence.
And Kate's war souvenir postcards are mentioned again. "She'll do no juggly-wuggly with her war souvenir postcards to help to build me Muriel tippers."
These postcards echo the mementos from the Musi Room earlier in the book, relics of past conflicts. Kate is portrayed almost like a post-battle profiteer, like Thackeray's hucksters who scavenged after Waterloo. Juggly-wuggly suggests trickery, or perhaps something sexual. She won't use these dubious souvenirs to build his Muriel memorial wall. Tippers might be informants.
They try to reassure him about continuity again. Assure there, and we put on your clock again, sir. For you. Did or didn't we share stutterers?
We put on your clock again. That's almost certainly an allusion to Lawrence Sterne's Tristram Shandy, where Tristram's conception is famously interrupted when his mother asks his father if he remembered to wind the clock. It suggests the constant, almost ritualistic winding of time and the perpetuation of the family line, maybe even conception happening despite his absence. And the speaker acknowledges their own difficulty speaking clearly, share stutterers, picking up the stuttering motif associated with HCE.
They promise, so you won't be up a stump entirely, nor shed your remnants. Turn wheels crawling strong.
Up a stump is another Huck Finn reference, meaning perplexed or stuck. Shed your remnants means shed your coat or clothes, but it has that queasy overtone of shedding your remains, your corpse. But no, the stern wheels crawling strong, the Mississippi riverboat imagery again, like in Huckleberry Finn or the song Old Man River, evokes the relentless flow of time, which continues strongly without him.
And his wife, ALP. She's doing just fine. I seen your missus in the hall, like the Queen of Air.
Yes, he saw ALP, your missus, in the hall. She's compared to Queen of Air, Guinevere, the queen consort of King Arthur, but also Queen of Air, Ireland. She is regal and enduring.
All right, it's herself. That's fine, too. Don't be talking.
Really?
Shucksins. You Storian Harry Chap, longa me Harry Chap, Storian grasswoman, Pluthy a good trout. Shakes hands. This sounds like pidgin English.
It does. It seems to represent the breakdown in communication when speaking to the dead, or perhaps reflects HCE's own foreignness or inability to understand clearly. Harry Chap might mean a trader, a storekeeper, someone shrewd or sly, maybe recalling Jacob tricking Isaac. Grasswoman could mean a white woman, or maybe a grass widow, a woman whose husband is often away or absent. It highlights the distance and the difficulty of truly communicating with the past, while still reassuring him of ALP's vitality. She's plethy good trout, plenty good, perhaps attractive. Trout can be slang.
The domestic scene continues, showing her contented routine, seemingly undisturbed. Bold Tib does be yawning and smirking cat's hours on the Pollux' woolly round tabaret cushion, watching her sewing a dream together, the tailor's daughter, stitched to her last.
Bold Tib is the household cat, taking a cat nap. Cat's hours. The Polluxes might be neighbors, or related to Pollux, twin of Castor. ALP is described as the tailor's daughter, patiently sewing, stitched to her last, both her final stitch and perhaps the shoemaker's last, continuing her creative mending work. She embodies persistence.
And even the cat's predatory instincts are woven in, with a slightly unsettling undertone. Or, while waiting for winter to fire the enchantment, decoying more nesters to fall down the flue, it's an avalanche that blows no pussy food.
The cat expects birds, nesters, to be lured down the chimney by the warmth of the winter fire the enchantment. But nesters could also imply nesters, wise old men, perhaps attracted like moths to a flame, to the warmth of the household, or ALP herself.
Like Hitchcock's The Birds almost, an avalanche of birds.
Exactly, an avalanche that blows no pussy food. An avalanche of birds providing no pussy food, meaning food for the pussycat, but also perhaps implying ill wind blows no good. It's a subtle hint that ALP herself might be a lure attracting new admirers, new old men, in HCE's absence.
And ALP's own enduring memories of their courtship are cherished, used almost as evidence of her continued vitality. If you only were there to explain the meaning, best of men, and talk to her nice of gold and silver.
Gold and silver, riches, maybe golden or silver wedding anniversaries. If only he were there to remind her of their past glories. The lips would moisten once again, hinting perhaps at both her mouth responding and maybe even vaginal labia. Lips often has that double meaning in Joyce.
She remembers being driven with her to Findrinny Fair, feeling disoriented, on land or at sea, or swooped through the blue like Airwinger's bride.
Yes, this seems to be ALP's memory of their first meeting or courtship, a whirlwind experience where she felt giddy, disoriented between land, sea, and air. Airwinger's bride clearly connects her to Earwicker. It's this nostalgic, sensual memory that underscores her continued vitality and, perhaps, desirability.
And she's still vibrant now. She was flirtsome then, and she's fluttersome yet. She can second a song and adores a scandal when the last post's gone by.
She still sings backup harmonies, second a song. She still enjoys gossip, adores a scandal. Even after the last post, the bugle call signifying the end of the day are often played at military funerals. Her life hasn't ended with his.
Fond of a concertina and pears passing when she's had her 40 winks for supper, after cannon and abbily dimpling, and is in her Merlin chair assotted, reading her evening world.
A 40-wink snap after supper of cannon, coal cannon, a traditional Irish dish of potatoes and cabbage, and abbily dimpling, apple bumpling. She's assotted, meaning besotted, dazed, or sleepy, sitting in her Merlin chair, an invalid wheelchair named after an inventor, but also invoking the wizard Merlin, reading the Evening World newspaper.
And the news she reads blends the global with the local, the tragic with the trivial. News, news, all the news. Death, the leopard, kills fella in Fez. Angry scenes at Stormount. Still a star with her lucky in going aways. Opportunity fair with the China floods, and we hear these rosy rumors.
It's a perfect snapshot of how life continues. International news, death in Fez, political unrest in Stormont, Belfast, celebrity gossip, still a star, a movie star with her fiancé honeymoon lucky in going aways, natural disasters, China floods, local fairs, opportunity fair, and rumors. It shows a woman fully engaged with the living world, its dramas big and small.
She's also immersed in fiction. She's seeking her way, a chuckle, in and out of their serial story, Les Loves of Selskar et Pervenche, freely adapted to the No Virgins Viv.
She's reading serialized fiction, perhaps in the newspaper. The title seems to blend Selskar Gun, a character associated with Sean, and Pervenche, French for the periwinkle flower, often bluish-violet linking to Issy. It's freely adapted to the No Virgin's Viv, No Virgin's Life, perhaps, or the Norwegian's Wife, referencing Ibsen or HCE's possible origins. Her story, like the wake itself, seems endless, a testament to her enduring, multifaceted life.
But they ominously conclude this section. There'll be bluebells blowing in salty sepulchres the night she signs her final tear. The end.
It's a powerful image. Bluebells blowing could be flowers blooming, but maybe also champagne bubbles blowing. Salty sepulchres suggest salty tears, or the sea itself as a grave. She'll weep until her final tear marks the end of the story, her life, and Z end, the final Z of the alphabet, echoing the end of the book itself. It's a poignant reminder of her own eventual, inevitable death.
But they immediately backtrack, as if that thought is too final, too real. But that's a world of ways away. Till Tracklaw's time.
Exactly. They pull back from the brink. No silver ash or switches for that one, while flattering candles flare. No gray hair, silver ash, no punishments, which is used on naughty children. The flattering candles suggest life's illusions, or maybe just candlelight making her look younger.
Anastasis, how are you? Were their waste in the noblest, says Adams and Sons, the would-pay actioneers.
Anastasis sounds very much like the Greek word anastasis, meaning resurrection. She's full of life. She's worth her weight. Worth her waste, according to Adams and Sons, Dublin auctioneers. Actioneers, who would pay?
Her hair's as brown as ever it was, and wavy and wavy. She's unchanged, still youthful.
Yes, she's alive and well. And this leads to the final insistent command directed back at Finnegan. Repose you now, fin no more. It's both finish no more and a pun on sin no more. The message is absolutely clear. She's alive, she's well, she's carrying on the life he supposedly left behind. You are not needed here. Stay down.
So after all that elaborate effort, all the flattery, the threats, the reassurances, all designed to convince Finnegan to stay dead, to make him believe his legacy is secure and his family thriving without him, the narrative takes this decisive, almost shocking turn. The real reason for their insistence is finally revealed. A replacement is already here. The cycle truly does continue, whether they like it or not.
Indeed. It's the inevitable reality of succession, the Viconian recurso, which Joyce underscores with stark clarity right at the end of this section. The passage states, "For, be that same-sake sib substitute of a hooky salmon, there's already a big righty-ram lad at random on the premises of his haunt of the hungered bortles, as it is told me."
Okay, let's unpack that. The hooky salmon.
Remember Finn McCool gained wisdom from eating the salmon of knowledge. This figure is compared to a hooky salmon, maybe caught on a hook, dubious, not the real thing, a same-sake sib substitute, a namesake, a sibling substitute, implying that even if the original Finnegan were to return, he'd simply be a copy, a lesser version of what once was. The replacement is already taking over.
And this replacement is described as a big rowdy ram lad. What does that signify?
Rody Ramlad strongly alludes to Tobias Smollett's picaresque novel Roderick Random. But Ram is also crucial astrologically. It marks the shift from the astrological age of Pisces, the fish associated with Christ, and maybe Finn's salmon, to the age of Aries, the ram. This typically happens around the spring equinox, March 21st, symbolizing a new cycle, a new, perhaps more aggressive energy supplanting the old.
And he's at random on the premises of his haunt of the hungered bortles.
At random, like Smollett's hero, unpredictable. The haunt of the hungered bortles sounds like the House of the Hundred Bottles, HCE's pub, but also maybe hungry brothels, suggesting illicit desires. And it might even echo Conn of the Hundred Battles, a legendary Irish high king. It's a place of illicit activity, historical resonance, and basic human drives, suggesting the new order arises from the same flawed, fertile ground.
This new figure is none other than the new HCE Humphrey Chimpden Earwicker himself, the new to guise, or maybe the original returning. And he's flourishing, assertive, taking up the mantle of the fallen. Shop illicit, flourishing like a Lord Major or a Bobo Ababum.
Shop illicit seems to refer back to HCE's possibly unlicensed pub in Chapelizod, a place of dubious legality. He's flourishing like a Lord Major, the Lord Mayor of Dublin, or a Bobo-Bum, a majestic baobab tree, maybe playing on German Baum or Dutch Boom for tree, perhaps even Buddha's Bodhi tree. He's large, impressive, growing.
And the next part is very physical, almost graphic.
Ling.
Flop a deadlop, a loose, to lee, but lifting a bend branch a yard along. Evalbra, another breezy side.
It's a vivid, almost crude description of a robust, growing figure, and it's absolutely packed with veiled references to the Guinness brewing family, who were major figures in Dublin and associated with Phoenix Park. Letting flop a deadlop suggests letting a dead branch lop off, or maybe even defecating a loose, on the lee or sheltered side, while simultaneously lifting a bend branch, a living branch on the breezy side, the side showing vigor.
So Ben Branch is Benjamin Lee Guinness, the restorer of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Very likely. And yard-along suggests a yardarm of a ship, strength. Ivo evokes the Earl of Ive, Edward Cecil Guinness, who gifted St. Stephen's Green to Dublin, but also the Beckic shout of joy, Evo! And maybe a defiant I-wo, heavens no. It's all done for showm, both for show and perhaps for shame. It's a description of a thriving, assertive, perhaps slightly vulgar new figure linked directly to the Guinness family's brewing empire, signaling the rise of a new economic and social power taking over from the old.
His stature is emphasized, the height of Brewster's chimney, and as broad below as Phineas Barnum.
Brewster's chimney is surely the towering chimney of the Guinness Brewery at St. James's Gate, playing on HCE's middle name, Chimpden. And being as broad below as Phineas Barnum, the famous showman, suggests imposing size, maybe even a certain showmanship or humbuggery.
And he's humping his share of the show. There's his sinking on him. He's such a grandfather.
Yes, humping brings in HCE's first name, Humphrey. He's taking on his share of the shoulders, the burden. Senken is German for sinking or lowering. He's carrying the weight, but he's also a grand fellow, but also the one who has fallen or caused the fall. He's not merely replacing the old HCE, he's inheriting his flaws, his characteristics, his name, his burden.
And this new HCE, or maybe just HCE reappearing, comes with his own family, mirroring the old one, but with its own distinct, somewhat grotesque character. With a pocked wife in pickle that's a fly fire, and 3 lice noodle clinkers, 2 twilling bugs, and 1 midget pucelle.
It's a rather unflattering description, isn't it? It suggests the cyclical nature of human imperfections, that the new family is just as flawed as the old. The wife is pocked, marked by smallpox or maybe syphilis, in pickle, in trouble or maybe preserved in brine or venereally infected, and a fly fire, a firefly, ephemeral but maybe also slang for venereal disease. It hints at past indiscretions or disease.
And the 3 children.
They're described as lice niddle clinkers. Lice, nits, and echoing Smollett's novel Humphrey Clinker. 2 twilling bugs. Twilling suggests twin, so 2 twin boys, maybe bugs because they're annoying. And 1 midget pucelle. A midget or flea-like virgin daughter pucelle means maiden, famously used for Joan of Arc. This new family, perhaps reflecting Shem, Sean, and Issy, embodies the new cycle, mirroring the old but with its own unique, often disturbing characteristics. It even brings in Barnum again, with his famous midgets and flea circuses. The cycle repeats, perhaps degrades.
This final part of the section really feels like it ties everything together. It shows how these events aren't just isolated incidents, but part of a larger recurring pattern, echoing Vico's theories and emphasizing the enduring responsibility of this central figure, HCE. It's a grand statement about the relentless march of time and human nature.
Indeed, it brings it all back to the beginning in a way. And either he cursed and recursed and was ever seen doing what your 4-footlers saw, or he was never done seeing what you cool pigeons know.
Cursed and recursed, that's Vico's corsi-recursi, isn't it? The flows and recurrences of historical cycles.
Exactly, and Joyce plays with tenses and perception again. Ever seen doing versus never done seeing. It depends on the witness. 4-footlers could refer to the 2 girls in the park, 4 feet total, witnesses to the sin, perhaps alluding to the voyeuristic what the butler saw machines, while cool pigeons are stool pigeons, informants.
And the clouds aboon for smile-down witnesses act as a kind of divine confirmation. God is my witness. It highlights the subjective nature of truth and how events are always interpreted through different lenses. repeated endlessly.
It's a perpetual creation and recreation. Though Iset fibble it to the Zephyroth and Artsas zoom it around her heavens forever, Creator he has created for his creatured ones a creation.
Iset is Hebrew for wife of, right? So Isis, ALP's counterpart.
Yes, and she might fibble it, tell fables, lies, to the Zephyroth, the emanations of God in Kabbalah. Artsa is Hebrew for to the earth, maybe contrasted with Latin astra stars. You might zoom it like a plane in WWI slang around the heavens. But despite these different tellings, the core fact remains. Creator he has created for his creatured ones a creation. It's this emphatic, almost biblical statement of continuous cosmic and human generation. Creation is never truly finished. It's always happening.
And the political spectrum is invoked again, showing how these grand cycles manifest in human ideologies and conflicts. White monotheoid, red theatrocrat, and all the pink prophets go-hail thing.
This seems to refer to white and red political factions, like in the Russian Civil War, and contrasting ideologies, monotheist versus theocrat. Pink represents a blending of red and white, a compromise maybe. And coalescing means coalescing, bringing things together, but it also clearly links to the Hebrew Koheleth, the book of Ecclesiastes, the preacher, who famously said, "There is nothing new under the sun."
It's a recognition of the diverse and often conflicting forces that emerge in these cycles, constantly combining and recombining, much like Joyce's language itself.
Precisely. History repeats, ideologies clash and merge. It all flows together.
So amidst all this cyclical chaos, who is the true original offender, the one ultimately responsible for this endless cycle? Is it Finnegan? Is it HCE? Is it the newcomer?
The text makes it pretty clear, I think. However, 'twas to sure for one thing, what Sheriff Torah voucher fors and Mapkeek makes put out, that the man, the Chimpden-esque, overseen as we thought him, yet a worthy of the name, came at this time-colored place where we live in our parochial firmament, one tied on another.
Okay, Sheriff Torah sounds like the sheriff enforcing the Torah, the law, and Mapkeek.
Mapkeek is a Hebrew diacritical mark, but maybe also suggests Keith, the highwayman anti-hero of the Beggar's Opera. So law and outlaw both confirm it. The man is the Chimpden-esque, HCE himself, HCA Esquire. Chimpden, like a tradesman, maybe related to Cheapside in London, or East Cheap, where Falstaff caroused. He was overseen, watched, spied upon, but also overseen, mistakenly thought to be someone else. He is worthy of the name, but also Hebrew noyim, pleasant. He is the original continuous figure.
He's the one who arrived here in the first place. His arrival is described almost mythically yet concretely, blending history and legend again.
Came at this time-colored place where we live in our parochial firmament, one tied on another, with a bum rush and a hull of a wherry, the twin turbane dhow, the bay for Dibbling, this archipelago's first visiting schooner. Time-colored place, history layered upon history, one tied on another, the relentless cycles. He arrives with a bum rush, a forcible entry in a hull of a wherry, which sounds like hell of a wherry, a small boat, maybe a twin turbane dhow, a two-masted Arab sailing ship suggesting foreignness, maybe Noah's Ark. He's the bay for Dibbling, a Turkish governor, bay for Dublin, again hinting at foreign invasion or settlement, a recurrent theme in Irish history. He's the first visiting schooner.
And his ship's figurehead reflects his dual complex nature. With a Wicklow pattern willow waxen wench at her prow for a figurehead, the Dead Sea dugong up-dip dripping from his depths.
The Wicklow pattern willow suggests maybe Wicklowware pottery or the weeping willow associated with exile or mourning. The waxen wench is a pale maidservant, or maybe a prostitute made of wax, artificial. And the Dead Sea dugong, dugongs, sea cows, often mistaken for mermaids, can't live in the salty Dead Sea. So it's this impossible, uncanny image, up-dip dripping from his depths, suggesting something monstrous or mythical rising from the unconscious.
This enduring offender, they say, has been re-preaching himself like a fishmummer these 60-10 years ever since.
Re-preaching himself, constantly reasserting himself. Like a fishmummer, a fishwife, someone loudly, perhaps crudely, selling their wares or arguing, or maybe a mummer in a fish costume. For 16 years, which blends 16 and 70, French 70, maybe suggesting the 70 years of Babylonian captivity, or just a long, indefinite period. He's a persistent, sometimes irritating presence, always re-emerging.
And he's not alone. He's Shebi by his side, Addy and Aid.
Shebi is Hebrew for captivity, or maybe 7. Shide is side. Addy and Aid could be Adam and Eve, or maybe Horus and his helper. He always has his consort, his other half, by his side through these cycles.
He's aging and transforming, but always present in different forms. growing whorish under his turban and changing cane sugar into cellulose starch.
Growing whorish, his hair growing whiter, older, under his perhaps Turkish turban, and changing cane sugar into cellulose starch. This sounds alchemical, but Zethilos clearly evokes Seth, who replaced the murdered Abel in Genesis, and maybe cellulose, a basic plant starch. It could suggest a degradation from refined sugar to basic starch, or the shift from Cain's agriculture to Seth's lineage, and to Seth to him, to Tutankhamun's curse, or just bad Seth, bad luck to him. He changes, but he remains the same fundamental substance.
In his true nature, beyond the outward appearance, the boasting, is laid bare as something far more complex, maybe less heroic than the mourners previously described when they were flattering him.
Exactly. Bodden, the bulkyhood he bloats about when inebriated, our old offender was humile, commune, and insectuous from his nature. Botten is Scottish-Irish dialect for with the exception of, or setting aside. So setting aside the bulkiness and boasting when he's inebriated, this old offender, a legal term for a repeat criminal, was actually humile, humble, commune, common, general, maybe even democratic in his way, and insectuous.
Insectuous. That means incestuous, right? A core accusation.
Yes, incestuous, but also insectuous, clearly referring back to the earwig nickname. His very nature is humble, common, and yet prone to transgression like an insect. You can gauge this true nature, the text says, after the bynames was put under him in lashons of languages, Honin suit and praisers be. His many nicknames in countless languages reveal this complex, often unflattering truth, despite the praise. Oni swakimeli pons, shame on him who thinks evil of it, praisers be.
And the final, ultimate declaration of responsibility. This feels like the big takeaway from this whole section.
It really is. And totalizating him, even Hamasim of Himashim, that he sober serious, he is a no counter he who will be the ultimately responsible for the hubbub caused in Eden-Brough.
Totalizating him, Hamasim of Himashim.
Bringing it all together. Hamasim is Hebrew for 50, and Himashim might be related to the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. It emphasizes his totality, his essence. When he's sober serious, he is HCE's own siglum or symbol in Joyce's notes, suggesting his core identity, perhaps I am that I am, and there's no counter he, no counterfeit, no double, he is the one.
And he is the one ultimately responsible, and maybe punchable for the hubbub caused in Eden-Brough.
Exactly. Eden-Brough is both the Garden of Eden, the site of the original fall, and Burquay, part of Dublin's quay system along the Liffey. It is HCE, this constant, flawed, recurring, protean figure, who is the source of all the chaos and creation, the beginning and the end of this particular cycle, the one ultimately responsible for everything that happens in this world. He can't escape it, and neither can anyone else.
Wow. Okay. We have journeyed through such a rich and incredibly intricate landscape in just these, 6 or 7 pages of Finnegans Wake, pages 23 to 29.
It feels like a whole world.
It really does. From that happy fault that seems to kickstart the entire narrative, through the intricate allegories of ACE as the Silent Mountain and ALP as the Babbling River, to those desperate, almost comical pleas to keep the dead Finnegan dormant, and then finally the undeniable arrival of his replacement or maybe his own return, Joyce truly weaves together an incredible tapestry, doesn't he? Myth, history, personal struggles, linguistic acrobatics, all exploring this cyclical nature of life, death, and succession.
It's a profound examination, really, of how society, how we all grapple with our past, with our heroes and villains, and with the unending process of change. That central tension, this collective desire to keep Finnegan HCE dead and buried, versus his persistent, almost defiant presence and the inevitable rise of successor, it's truly a profound lens through which to view our own human experience. It makes you question the very concept of an ending, doesn't it? It reveals that what seems to conclude often simply begins anew, perhaps in a slightly different form. The pattern repeats.
And that, I think, leaves us with maybe a provocative thought for your own deep dive as you reflect on these pages or just on the world around you. These pages, as we've seen, challenge us to consider not just what Joyce is saying, but how he's saying it. His language itself becomes a character, right? Constantly morphing, punning, echoing across cultures and time.
Absolutely. The medium is the message, in a way.
So what if our own understanding of history, of identity, even of the daily news we consume, is similarly shaped by layers upon layers of interpretation, personal bias, cultural echoes, and the ceaseless buffeting of information, as Joyce puts it, making the truth, whatever that is, as elusive, as multifaceted, and as constantly shifting as Finnegans' true state of being, whether he's dead, alive, or somewhere in between.
It's certainly an invitation, maybe even a demand from Joyce, to listen more deeply, to question the obvious surfaces, to look for the patterns, the echoes, the contradictions, and maybe even to find the happy fault, the generative seed, hidden within every complex, messy narrative that surrounds us.
A fantastic place to pause for this session.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Finnegans Wake.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep diving deep.